all, we just wanted to say a huge thank you to all of you for giving up your time over the last few days and coming to Scottish Summit. I'm sure you'll all agree that it's been absolutely fantastic.
All right. Awesome. I don't think it's on. I couldn't hear yours either, so I'm not too worried. Anyways, what I'd like to say first and foremost is a massive, massive thank you to all the speakers. I spoke myself. I know the time, dedication, and effort it takes to get something out there and actually deliver it. I think we had a whole bunch of new speakers. A massive thank you to all of you guys that went out there and actually put it on the line and delivered. I think the second one that I was going to say is another huge shout out to all the volunteers. I know some of you guys have put in so much effort, such commitment, and with so much drive. You know, I think some of you guys have even put me to shame, which I'll hold my hands up to, but you guys have absolutely killed it. So again, another huge, huge thank you to all you guys.
And last but not least, can you listen to me?
Yeah.
Okay, great. I'm going to introduce a person that needs no introduction, because all of you already know her. Welcome to the stage, Dona.
Hello. Who's had a great conference? Who learned to say applause in sign language? All right, so we're going to close on an uncharacteristically serious topic. Can you all hear me okay? Good. How many of you have heard the term mental health? How many of you heard it in the context of work suddenly in the last 2 years? That's a lot of hands. I have too. I've been hearing about it a lot in the context of work, in the office, work from home. And this is a thing that I have struggled with, dealt with myself, both for myself as well as the person I live with. The person I live with struggles from deep, lifelong depression. This is not something I would have felt comfortable standing up in front of 1,000 of my closest community friends and talking about a few years ago. And I realized that there's such a strong stigma around mental health all around the world. So once I realized this, I got really mad. I'm like, you know what? We're going to engineer a solution, right? We're going to build a framework, and then we're going to share it with everyone so we can talk about mental health at work without getting fired. So before we do that, I'd like to share with you the story of Paula. Paula is a young engineer in Lagos, Nigeria. I spent 4 years of my life doing a lot of business development in Nigeria. And I met her when I was running an entrepreneur's boot camp. She was building a telehealth, mental health therapy app thing. The point was that when people in Africa needed to talk to somebody, they could dial a number, and then therapists in training all around the world could answer the phone to get practice. The reason Paula was doing this is because mental health has a major stigma in Africa. You're seen as crazy. There's something wrong with you. You're bringing shame upon your family. This is not something you talk about. And Paula couldn't let this just keep happening, because her best friend had committed suicide 6 months earlier because she suffered from lifelong depression. And because she couldn't get the help, because when she brought it up with her parents, her school counselor, they said, "You are crazy. You have to stop talking about this. You are bringing shame to our family." And Paula couldn't stand by and let that happen to one other person. So she started building this telehealth portal. Once we started talking to people all around the world, we realized mental health is a stigma in most places. Even in the most progressive of countries, even in the US where I live, in the UK where we all are, there's still such a strong stigma around this concept. And in tech, where our one job is to use this thing in our head really well, how can we say that machine is not working as expected? How do we say that? This is an industry where we replace machines that are broken. That is our job, to identify the broken machine, throw it away, and buy a new one. So how can we say this machine is broken, but it can be repaired? It needs a break. It needs a reboot. How do we say that about our brains? This is a tweet by somebody in our community. It's someone you probably all know. He is a very jovial young man, joyful, always has a joke, always talking about like helping the community, MVP, shows up at every conference. He wrote this poem. It was a bad day, and it was just a few days ago. He says, I'll read it. Hi, PSA. Time because I need to get this out. This past week, I've been struggling. Trying to smile, it seems. My resistance was futile to the antithesis of my dreams. This nightmare consists of things I can't control, taking over my mind, my emotions, and my soul. And then he went on to say, I'm having a very, very hard day. I don't know what to do. I'll probably delete this tweet. But I wanted you to know how I felt. I messaged him, we talked, and he said, it was really hard to say these things, but I also wanted others who felt this way to know that they're not alone. That is strength. That is a position of strength. To say that I feel this way, but I'm ready to share it with you and face your judgment, because I don't ever want you to feel this kind of alone. So once I realized this is happening, I'm like, this is familiar. Who's felt this before? Is this familiar to any of you? Yeah. And those of you not raising your hands, it is fine. It is okay to not raise your hand. That's the other thing that we have to get our heads around. The ones who are okay with openly speaking out, this is fantastic. The ones who are not okay with openly speaking out, that is also fantastic. It's okay to not talk about it. Mental health, yes, it's a thing to talk about at home. But at work, you know, that's where I think we can all agree, like, okay, if you have mental health needs, you should go get a therapist, talk about it with your family, whatever, whatever. But at work, you know, people look at you like this. They're like, really? This is my colleague Mary and I having exactly this conversation. I'm like, I'm going to give a talk about mental health at work. And she looks at me like, and I said, no, but with a formula. She's like, oh, 2 engineers. I'm like, yes, okay. But here's the thing. What will people say? This is a picture of 3 people who you all know very well. Hi, Louise. This is taken at Ignite 2019. I was in a dark time back then. You couldn't tell, because I'm always very cheerful. A dark time. Personal life, going to hell. And I was like, I can't talk about this at work, because my manager will say, I don't think Donna's ready to go to Ignite and present things in front of 20,000 people when she's not all there. What will my colleagues say? Can I rely on her? What will my industry peers say? Can I quote her in this article knowing that she's going through something real in her personal life? So that fear is there. It's deep within. What will people say? What will they think of me? Will this affect me professionally? Will this stop my promotion? Could I get fired? These are all real fears that I've had, many of you have had. We just talked about it upstairs. And the answer is yes, those things can happen, but they could happen for anything. They can happen because you broke your leg and you missed that important exec meeting. It can happen because you went on parental leave. It can happen because your company had a bad turn. It can happen because you screwed up a project. It can happen for everything, but it doesn't necessarily have to. So I was so terrified of talking about this concept that I just didn't. I talked about everything else in the whole world. I talked about neurodiversity. I talked about being dyslexic very openly, now openly. I used to not. I talk about other people's mental health concerns. I talk about solutions for things. And I just couldn't fathom bringing up my own personal mental health journeys or my family's. And then pandemic happened. Hi, pandemic. So nice to see you. Thanks for visiting. Please go away. Never come back, ever. And I decided to take a really hard job in the middle of it. I'm like, cool, let me leave this job I really love, that I'm really good at, and take something on that's really hard, I know nothing about, and I'm probably gonna fail. That seems like a good idea. This accessibility job, to be nice, is really hard. There's people who've been in this space for 30, 40 years, and they don't have the choice that I do. I have an invisible disability. Dyslexia. They have very visible, lived, experienced disabilities where it stops them from doing specific things. In this image you're seeing in the middle my boss, Jenny Leigh-Fleury, who's the Chief Accessibility Officer at Microsoft, who's deaf. She uses a sign interpreter, much like Hannah. Next to her is Jessica Rayfuse, who's our head of policy. She uses a wheelchair. They don't get to wake up one day and say, I don't feel like working in accessibility. They don't get to say that. I have that choice. So I have to check my privilege every time I say this job is hard. And that itself is hard, because while they're dealing with fatigue, they're dealing with disability fatigue. I'm dealing with advocacy fatigue. One of those is a choice. But this job is hard. My team and I are responsible for 4,000 products. That's a lot of products. Used to be 4 products per platform. Now it's 4,000. When we don't do our job, a person who's blind may lose theirs. It's a very hard reality. So we don't get to catch a break, right? You know the stats. There's over 1 billion people with disabilities in the world. People who are blind, people who are colorblind, hard of hearing, deaf, limited mobility. But the 2 areas that I'm most afraid of are cognitive and neural. Cognitive, neurodiversity. Dyslexia, autism, ADHD. About 50% of you in the room have one of these. That is a fact. Probably more. Then all the way on the right is neural. That is mental health. Depression, anxiety, social anxiety, seasonal depression, postpartum depression, bipolar. About 50% of you in the room have that. And that is a fact. So yeah, this work is hard because it doesn't just affect some people over there. It affects 100% of people in this room and 100% of people in every room I've been in for the last year. Either it's you or someone you love. And that's true for me and that's true for you. So working in this field is not optional. But I found myself at the end of every day drained, irritable, and exhausted. Why? This work should be rejuvenating, making a difference in the world. But even with people who I love so deeply, I found myself exhausted, annoyed. No, I don't want to connect. No, I don't want to do a virtual happy hour. No, I don't want to do anything. I just want to lay here and stare at the wall and have escape fantasies, a lot of escape fantasies. I started looking at my bank account and deciding how big of a hut I could have in Barbados and never work again. Real thing, real thing. So once I realized, why am I feeling this way? I went into debugging mode. I'm like, okay, this is the state of the machine. The machine is obviously not functioning very well. We need to debug this machine. And it's not like I've never had a hard job before. I've had challenging positions, running a Windows Insider program with 20 million people who are yelling at me all the time. That's challenging. I did that while building a fashion line. So it's not like I've never had a hard job. But why is this so much harder now? More people you know. I realized my friends from around the industry, the entire tech industry and every industry, were also feeling this way. And it's because all of the things we used to be separated, home and work, are now glommed together. There is only home. And work has infiltrated home. Brian Dang and I have deep conversation about mental health on Twitter DMs of all the places we've chosen to communicate. He's like, how can I think about work when so many bad things are happening in the world? And it's a very good question, right? How can I go on acting like everything's fine when I just can't get over the sense of doom? And this is true. These are all true statements. Work is causing many of our mental health issues. It's not making them easier. But it is such a stigma to talk about it at work, to the point where we have to have Twitter DMs with our colleagues because we're so afraid to put it anywhere on company Teams, company email. Because I don't want HR seeing these. I don't want them pulling them out in the court of fire Dona. No, it's a real fear. So I decided, I'm like, all right, you know what? I'm going to treat this as I do everything, which is let's run experiments. You've heard me say the word experiment maybe 100 times today. I run experiments for everything. Do we want to implement this new feature? Experiment. Do we want to implement a new work schedule? Experiment. Do we want to talk about mental health at work? Experiment. Okay? So, I want to talk to you about 5 things. Why is it important for leaders like you to talk about this at work? 2, I can't read, so I'm kind of assuming what this says. What should you not be doing? That's probably the number one thing I get. Like, what is crossing the line, Donna? Like, I don't want to be weird. 3, personal mental health plans for you and your team. 4, team mental health plans. And 5, my experiment framework. Okay, ready? So this is now when we repair the machine. 1, why this matters. Okay, why? What is mental health anyway? So when you diagnose it, it actually doesn't sound as horrible. Once I started debugging this a little bit, I'm like, oh, actually we all have to deal with this. So here's mental health. Our emotional, psychological, and social well-being. It affects how we think, feel, and act. It also helps determine how we handle stress, relate to others, and make choices. It's a definition from mentalhealth.gov. That seems like coping. It seems like well-being. It seems like the thing we all have in our heads. There's no stigma to this. It's how we work, how we function, how we present in society. That seems like a thing we can talk about without issue, yeah? Yeah, this is okay. Remove the stigma. Emotional, psychological, social well-being. Okay, let's go with that word, well-being. We all have mental health. These regularly occurring negative emotions, that's when it turns into a condition, right? We're all gonna have a bad day. When it becomes a permanent bad day, that's when it's turning into condition. These are my former team, the insider team. Once I started talking about this, 100% of people in this picture came to me to tell me about their mental health situation. That means they've had it all along. And they just needed somebody to tell them that it's okay to talk about. And that is why it's important for leaders like you to talk about it, because it's part of our job to ensure the well-being of our people. And I know some of you are managers and some of you are not, but those of you who are not are role models. Because ain't nobody showing up to a conference on a Saturday in Scotland if you're not a role model to lots of people. Just pointing that out. If you're a selfish person who cares about no one but yourself, you're not at a conference on a Saturday, just letting you know. 1 in 4 people have a mental health condition. 4 out of 4 have mental health. 1 in 4 have a mental health condition that is permanent. 1 in 2, as Mike Hartley pointed out, have a mental health condition that is temporary. Seasonal disorder, postpartum disorder, social anxiety, current agoraphobia. That's a lot of people. And when you think about the fact that this report is from our friends at Care by Ginger, it's a cool company. They do mental health for work. They do resources, consulting, coaching. It's a very, very interesting company. Adam Halls, one of our marketing managers at Microsoft, recently went to become their CMO. I went through all of their documentation, and I found some very interesting stats. First of all, they did this study of 1,200 workers and 150 CEOs. That's a longitudinal study. And it turned out that 90% of employees appreciate their leadership speaking out about mental health, but only about half feel like their leadership do. Ironically, 90% of leaders think they talk about mental health. I'm like, yo, there's a mismatch up in here, where your reports think you're not talking about it, but you are. So leaders, we have an opportunity. Your people want this. And there are going to be people who are like, I don't want to talk about this. Both managers and people who are like, I don't want to talk about this. It has no place in the workplace. What do you do with people like this? I have people on my team who are like, this is a new concept. I've never thought about it, and that's okay. You go into manager, model, coach, care mode, right? At Microsoft, we have this framework called model, coach, care. You model the behavior you want to see, you coach your folks to get there, and then you care for them. You just put it in the framework. I just like this picture of Ann Taylor on my team. She's coaching Satya Nadella on how to use Seeing AI. She models the behavior. This is how you use it. Coaches him to use it and cares while he does it. So for the people who are like, I don't want to talk about it, I'm like, cool, it's just model, coach, care. Put this as part of the care portion. They're like, oh, okay, cool, I get that. I get the care portion. The way I have this conversation in my teams is I just bring it up in a team meeting. I say, hey, I'd like to use 5 minutes of the team meeting and in our next one-on-ones talking about well-being and mental health. If I am in a culture where that is not a topic, mental health, or I'm a person who's not comfortable bringing it up, just cross that part out. I'd like to spend 5 minutes talking about well-being. Destigmatize, de-escalate, It means the same thing as per the definition, but it gets rid of this word that has such a deep stigma. I use situational language, so depending on who I'm talking to, I'll say either well-being or mental health. Half my team, well-being. Other half, mental health. Management, well-being. Definitely well-being. Actually, lawyers, well-being. Engineers, mental health. CEOs, well-being. Customers, well-being. Just decide. Situational language. You know your people really well, right? You know who's going to resonate, who's not. I start with both, and I really refine. So in our team meetings, this is the conversation I say. It's my team meeting. We're having coffee, finally in person. What experiments can we try in our team to help with our overall well-being and mental health? Again, cross out the one you don't want to use. And then I do my 100 experiments thing, which is like, okay, we're going to run 100 experiments this year. Everyone write down your experiment on this Excel spreadsheet. Now a Power App, convince them. So our 100 experiments Power App. And then as we do them, we cross them off. Some experiments that have worked very well, I'll share with you in a minute. So this is exactly the line I use, once a quarter. What experiments do we want to do? First quarter, they didn't volunteer any. Second quarter, they volunteered 2. This quarter, we have 250 freaking experiments they want to do. I'm like, all right. One-on-ones. This is Sean. That is a cotton candy bear? I don't know. But they gave them out at work, so we're like, we need to take a selfie with this because, wow. In one-on-ones, I say, what can I be doing more of or less of to help with your well-being / mental health? You don't need to answer me right now, but just so you know, the door is open. 100% of my team over the past year, just to be clear, when I asked this last June, they looked at me like, woman, this is a trick question. I'm like, okay, fine. And I told them, here's something you can help me to do with my well-being and mental health. They're like, what? And I said, I asked Jenny to do this for me, and I'd like you to do it too. They're like, okay. I'm like, when you send an email and you want me to read it, put me on the 2 line. Don't put me on the CC, because my 2 line goes to 1 inbox. I'm dyslexic, so the less email I have to read, the better. So I read my 2 line with immersive reader. Everything else I like vaguely skim. So if you want me to read it right away, send it, put me on the 2 line. I said, do that for me. They're like, okay. Gave them something very tangible, practical to do. Everyone now does it. That opened the door to them telling me what I could do for them. Now, everyone else has a list of things they'd like me to do for them. Half of these are pretty good, though. I've learned a lot. Many of our experiments come from things our team has suggested. Okay. So those are some ways to approach the topic. 2, what should you not be doing? And honestly, it's just don't get weird, okay? That's all. It just summarizes and don't get weird. Don't try to be a therapist unless you're literally a therapist, which you're not. Unless you are, but you wouldn't be at Scottish Summit maybe on a Saturday if you were there. Okay, don't act like a therapist. Be your helpful friend, right? Be that person's like, you can talk to me. I'm not gonna judge, definitely not gonna tell anyone. Just you can share with me what's going on. They may feel comfortable to, they may not feel comfortable to. That is okay. Your job is to offer, is to open the door. Second, it has to be optional, like to reiterate. This doesn't go in your performance review. We're never going to talk about this in the context of how you're doing. It's not part of your commitments. If you have a mental health plan, not a plan, does not matter. It is a thing to help with general well-being. It's like saying, do you go to the gym or not? It is up to you. I'm just saying the gym is an option, right? We have that thing downstairs called the gym. We can use it if we want. That is all I'm saying. But it has to be optional. So many managers are like, I feel coerced into having this conversation with my team when I'm super uncomfortable talking about it. I'm like, you have to make it optional. And you have to make it optional and also let people have the nuance on how they want to present it. Third, share your story, but never share anyone's story. I've heard a lot of really great mental health stories this weekend. I will not share a single one of them. Even though they're on the public medium out in front of 150 people, I'm not going to share them. If I do, it'll be anonymous, with permission. That tweet you saw, I asked him for permission, even though I didn't share his name. We'll never, ever share someone else's story, even anonymized. You can say there are people who struggle with mental health in our community at scale, but don't triangulate down to who it could be, because we don't need to stigma, right? Fourth, Don't assume people can't do specific work because they've disclosed a mental health thing. For example, if someone says, I have major social anxiety, being around a lot of people makes me nervous, for me to say, oh, I'm not going to invite you to Scottish Summit next year because there's a lot of people, not a lot of downtime. For me to do that would be biasing. So I'm going to offer everybody, like, who wants to go to Scottish Summit? Hands, and then find budget. If they have social anxiety, I'll say, hey, ready for Scottish Summit? Anything you need me to do for you? Just like I would anyone. If someone is blind, if they're deaf, they have social anxiety, they have seasonal depression, doesn't matter. What can I do to make Scottish Summit better for you? And fifth, don't shame anyone. Again, back to the point. There's well-being shaming and not well-being shaming. Well-being shaming is this. Ooh, you don't have Teams on your phone? That's weird. What if someone needs to get a hold of you? Well-being shaming. I don't have Teams on my phone. I'm very clear about it. I have no Teams, no Outlook, no work on my phone. I have Twitter on my phone if you consider that work. This is why everyone can get a hold of me on Twitter and nowhere else. That's well-being shaming. Also, well-being shaming is, oh, you're taking a mental health day? That's interesting. Or, oh, you took all your sick leave for the year? You took all your vacation days for the year? Oh, I couldn't do that. I have way too much work. Well-being shaming. The not well-being shaming is also not good. You need to take mental health days. It's good for you. Don't do it. Take Twitter, take this off your phone. It's bad for your mental health. Don't respond to email after 9 o'clock. It's bad for your mental health. You're not a therapist. You don't live in their head. You don't know what's good for their mental health and what is not. We do not get to infantilize people. It does not work. Don't assume you know better than others. I'm lecturing you like you do this. Don't. I'm just saying there are people who do this. They go into like super therapy mode. I'm like, no, your job is to support what people are asking for. If they ask you to do something for them, do that for them. If they don't ask you to do something, don't do it. Third, this is a thing that's actually worked out really well, which is creating personal mental health strategies for the team for the day-to-day. And this is their strategy. They shouldn't even tell you unless they really want to. So it can be whatever strategy works for them, but it's a daily check-in with yourself for what works. Here are mine, and I'm very clear about sharing them with everybody so they get ideas on what you can do, what is possible. This is not because I want other people to share it with me. I just have no issue telling everyone and tweeting about it. After 6 back-to-back meetings, I take a 1-hour break. My mind is gone. After meeting 5, I'm like, I'm fidgety, I'm random, I don't get it. So I just take a break, full on, go outside, take a walk, stare at the wall, doom scroll Twitter, respond to all of you, just take a total break from work. 2, I don't do meetings before 8 a.m. with weird exceptions. Like, I just don't. I'm not better before 8 a.m. I'm a terrible person. It's best I don't do them. I do 1 external talk or customer visit a week because it reminds me of my why. I'm like, why am I doing this work? This work is hard. This is why. This is why. Fill the tank. Fill the tank of why. 4, we have a therapy option called Microsoft Cares. There's 12 of them that are free, and I think there's 24 virtual something. But I use them. I use 1 a month. Go check in with my therapist. And I tell people that. And it's like checking in with a physiotherapist when you have arthritis. It's just a thing you can do. So why not? They offer it. And 5, I take a mental health day or vacation day once a month, and I'm very clear about it. I'm like, I'm taking a mental health day, see everyone on Thursday. Offline, you won't be able to find me because I have no Teams on my phone. When I started doing this last one, my team's like, oh, this was the tipping point. That was the tipping point. Everyone's like, you mean it. You're not just talking the talk, you mean it. You put it into words in Microsoft Mail. And you send it out where anyone can see it. And I put it in my OOF, taking mental health day. 4, team agreements. Okay, team agreements. This is your team mental health strategy. You need to set your goals for team well-being. Okay, our goals are, we don't want to feel burned out. We want to work on things that matter to us personally. And 3, we don't want work to extend into evenings, weekends, life. These are the 3 modes. Now, my team is 100% distributed. So we used to be all based in Redmond, Washington, boring. So I told everyone to move wherever they want. Pretty much everyone moved out of Redmond, Washington, turns out. So now we're completely distributed. So I don't want work to extend into their home life, but I don't get to decide when that is. Because to some people, work may begin at noon, East Coast. Some people, it may begin at 2 p.m., Australia. So I don't get to decide that for them. They decide. So what we've done is, as a result of those 100 experiments, we do each experiment for 3 months. We'll pitch an experiment, do it for 3 months, see what works, and then either adopt it or kill it. And we document that. We're like, tried that, didn't work, tried this, did work. So here's what we have done so far that have worked. 1, we have no well-being shaming whatsoever. So that means I send email at weird hours because I'm an insomniac with nighttime anxiety, which is hilarious. So I send email at 2 a.m. constantly. They're not allowed to say, hey, Donna, you shouldn't be sending me email at this hour. Because what is at this hour? For Australia, it's the perfect normal time of day. Redmond, it's a weird hour. So we have a rule where it doesn't matter when the email comes in, respond in your own time zone. It's just unsaid. You don't have to apologize. You don't have to schedule it. I always find the whole don't send email at this time to be a rigmarole because you're assuming everyone works the same way as you. And that itself is not very inclusive. So we just have the policy. As soon as you have that blanket policy, people get it. And if you don't respond at all hours, that's good, because then your team won't feel the need to respond at all hours. My team hasn't heard from me all week, by design. I told them, you're not going to hear from me till Monday night. 2, no meetings Monday till noon, in your time zone. This has been the biggest game changer, though. Before, we used to be extremely stressed people. Sunday, we were all calendar, moving things around. Oh, I didn't write my status. I'm like, why are you working on weekend? They're like, oh, Monday morning, I have this thing at 10. I'm like, why? It's always been there? Delete. Oh. So we've moved meetings out of Mondays for the most part. There's one I need to get rid of. It's Monday at 3 p.m. I hate it. We got to move it. So no meetings Monday morning whatsoever. We use that time to regroup, use our calendar, slow roll into the week. 100% of my team has said this has been a game changer for them because they're no longer have Sunday scaries. They're no longer dreading work on Monday. So try it if you haven't. If you can, try it. It's a big deal. It works really, really well. No meeting Friday afternoon. Many people do that. That was the first experiment we did. And I will be honest with you, at first when I pitched these, they're like, man, you're stupid. You've never had a job in your life. You think this is going to work here? I'm like, try it for 3 months. If it fails, you can say, Donna, you're stupid and wrong, and we're never listening to you again. That's fun to say to your boss. It's good. It's good. Prove me wrong. I'm like, prove me wrong. So we did it. We do all of them as experiments. 4th one, you don't have to attend every meeting. Record and transcribe everything. My team has lots of people with disabilities, so it kind of helps, but it helps everyone to not go to the meeting and scan the transcript. And if we need someone to do something, we call it out loudly. Like, Dan, we need you to do blah. In the transcript, it's like he can search for himself. Record, transcribe everything. So I didn't make our team meeting this week. Scanned the transcript, saw need Donna to give me more money. I'm like, no? Yeah. Actually, it said that. And 5th, we're going to try to meet twice a year IRL to reconnect. But that's it. Meet twice a year. Not 40% of the time, not 2 days a week, not 40 hours a week, Elon. Meet IRL twice a year. Build and ignite. We're going to make it work, right? Come to campus. Let's see each other. Have team coffees. See the product team. See all of you. Build and ignite, hopefully in person soon. Wink, wink. Yes. Okay. Yeah. When I'm fired, you know why, because I'm telling you all the shit. Okay. So I sent this tweet out saying we are doing async work. And the sheer number of people who reached out about async work means it's resonating. It's our next big experiment, async work. I do not care when you work. I do not care where you work. If you want to work on the moon at midnight, you should work on the moon at midnight. Finish your commitments in the 3-month period we set them for. If you're a genius and can get them done in a week, please take a beautiful 2.5 months off. Do it. Just do your work before the actual date. That is all I ask. Have the impact. Do not care when you work. So I'd like to close with this. Yes, you can talk about mental health at work, but I have a formula for it. So here's how I personally do it. And this is mostly how I talk to my management or talk to my partners. I'm dealing with X right now, and this is a real one. I had insomnia last week. I didn't know why. It went on for days. I'm dealing with like some weird sleep stuff right now. I'm going to try an experiment to start my meetings at noon. I'll report back in like a month to see if that solved it, and then figure out what to do in the future. State it as any other technical experiment. The machine is having this problem. I suspect it's Y reason. I'm going to implement this solution for this much time and see how the machine reacts. Debug this machine. It's the only one you got. You can replace your parts, but you only get this one. Because Mr. Huntingford and I were both at this event, there's, of course, homework. One, please work on your own personal mental health strategy, your daily coping. Write it down. Write it somewhere where you can see it, because it's a reminder. You all work too much. I say you all work too much because you're literally at a conference on a Saturday. So let's talk about how you work too much, okay? Write down your own personal daily coping strategy. You don't need to tell anyone, but make sure you have one for yourself. Sounds so hippy-dippy, but it makes such a difference to write it down and remind myself. 6 back-to-back meetings, no. Right? Second, come up with a team mental health strategy, whether it's just for you and your reports, you and your peers, you and the people you work with the most. Just come up with some agreements for all of you. And if you want to talk about it, my door is always open. Thank you so much for being here, and be well. Okay, so before all this, shifting hats, we had a hackathon. We had an accessibility-themed hackathon, and honestly, I didn't expect it to be so effing amazing. The solutions were so good that I called my team and made them join, and we are gonna go cajole the Teams team to implement one of them. Okay? Yes. Yeah. We're coming up with a set of mental health guidelines for product, and we got to test them for the very first time externally at the hackathon. So thank you, teams who actually did this, because you gave us a whole bunch of information to take back. These will be published later this year as part of our inclusive design toolkit for whatever you all choose to build. But we've got some more winners. The winner of the person who dared to challenge the demo gods by learning Dataverse in 1 day, because me, after 5 years, do not know how to use Dataverse correctly, goes to Fabian, who is new to our community, a second-year uni student, and you are going to take home this Xbox that's sitting on this table over there. Come on up here. It weighs a ton, so you have to take it with you. Okay. Good luck smuggling this. It is now your problem. Yeah. You're so welcome. Okay, to be so, yeah. A huge thank you goes out to Mr. Pauly. Are you here in the room? Yeah, for smuggling into the country that Xbox. He shows up at the hackathon with a suitcase. He's like, am I late? We're like, no. Thank you. Really appreciate it. Very kind donation. Also, excellent smuggling skills. Yeah. Second, I don't think the students are here, but we had a group of students from Uni of Edinburgh who's here. Very first time participating in this kind of thing, but they built a solution that was so good. It was an insulin tracker thing, a power app. And it was so legit, where they identified the customer, identified the use case. It was one of them who has diabetes. They came up with a beautiful solution. It worked. I'm like, how did it work? Worked in a day. And they figured out Power Platform that day. It was amazing. It was amazing. So we would like to give them the Best Teamwork Award. And April Dunham, over here in the third row, where'd you go? She was, oh, right here. She has kindly volunteered to have them on her show, The Low Code Lowdown, as guests. So thank you, April, so much. And if you didn't know April had a show, April has a show called The Low Code Lowdown. Also, she has the best YouTube channel about Power Platform in the entire world, just letting you know. Yeah. And the Inclusive Innovation Award goes to our friend Charlie Phipps, who new to community. Thank you, Christine, for finding his information. And Charlie is, he's working on design and development for doing inclusive design. And he implemented our mental health guidelines into his project. And he did it so well that I'm like taking notes for our product teams, like you need to learn from him. So I've given him 90 minutes of coaching from my team and I on how he can cajole his customers and clients to use accessibility by design from the beginning. So it's actually a favor to me to have someone actually doing the thing. And the last thank you goes out to two very, very important people. And that is these two scoundrels in the corner. One, Ian is leaving literally the room. Okay, so Ian and Mark have put this on by themselves. This is a two-person startup operation. And they have an amazing team of volunteers who they've recruited. But they've given their heart and soul to this on top of their day job. And this conference does not feel like it was put on by two people and a ragtag, beautiful group of volunteers. It feels like the most inclusive, accessible conference I have ever been to. And I've been to a shit ton of conferences. Sorry, Microsoft people, it's true. Honestly, the fact that accessibility and inclusion was woven through every single part of this conference was really intense. That was intense for me. I didn't expect that. The fact that we have a new speakers track and everyone's walking around making sure the new speakers have an audience and making sure that they feel supported and loved is beautiful. When they saw someone sitting alone, they're like, hey, someone's sitting alone. Let's make sure they feel included. The fact that there's new speakers track, accessibility hackathon, making sure that people's needs are accommodated for, that's not just lip service. That's not checking the box. They're infusing it to every single thing we do. Thank you so much, Ian and Mark, for being these role models.
Well, you can sit down, shut up now. It wasn't really us, it's actually the sponsors that make this.
Yeah, this is true.
We have to go corporate, we always have to go corporate. Without all the sponsors, again, this thing doesn't happen. So thank you to Microsoft, HSO, Docs42, PwC, AIS, and that little, what was the other one, Ian?
Oh, Proximal 3.
Yeah, no idea what or who those guys are.
So as we've said before, we've got gold sponsors and a few other sponsors there as well, and all the other sponsors are on the expo area. We couldn't do this without them. We couldn't put it on without them. Yeah, I'm doofed. Yeah, we couldn't put it on without them. We couldn't put it on without any of you guys at all. 4 years we've been doing this. As to where we are, it's mad. Dona stole half of what I wanted to really say about winding everybody up, and we've always had like bits of agenda and stuff going through it, and I don't know, that's just what it is. But
So
you're still here.
while Ian collects his thoughts, we will bring on Sarah and Kayla. Obviously, this gets harder every year, it gets bigger. We can't keep doing this all the time, so fuck, here goes me now. We can't do this all the time, so there are other events that people can go to, so we have Sarah to talk about Nordic Summit.
Nordic Summit! Yes, so on 24th of September, me and a bunch of cool people are organizing Nordic Summit. It's a Saturday, it's in Stockholm this year. It's a full day with 5 tracks, 30 sessions, a pub quiz, and we also organize 3 pre-day workshops where you can be taught about customer insight, portal pages, whatever it's called, and governance. So please come to Stockholm, and I hope I see you there.
And we have Kayla, who's going to tell us about a party.
I mean,
It's a
right.
sunnier venue anyway.
So I would love to tell you that I completely didn't plan this in Portugal because none of us need a tan. But I am providing you a business legitimate reason to accidentally have to spend the bank holiday weekend in April next year in the Algarve. So, I honestly don't know whose idea it was to decide we would do a 2-day event over a bank holiday weekend, literally 20 minutes from the beach, but they were genius. But yeah, this is a Microsoft Stack event, so M365, Azure, Dynamics, Power Platform. And what we are really trying to emphasize on this is we have a full track of Portuguese speakers, full track of Spanish speakers, and we're really actually trying to make it about accessibility, new talent, learning and development, and bringing new consultants into the market, you know, trying to take it somewhere. We have access to these guys, Scottish Summit, South Coast Summit, and the more time I spent in Portugal and these sort of places, I realised they didn't have this sort of access. So that's why I'm bringing you all there, so we can try and give this sort of environment to other people, and I really hope you do join us.
So this was me, what I was meant to come to earlier when I said Donna stole half the slide deck that I wanted to do. I was talking about our journey to get to where we are just now. We've always kind of pushed different, what some people call a tick box, but what we've just always kind of tried to do is be a bit more inclusive and just get more people involved in the community. So year one, we were very gender diverse. It wasn't our intention that when we started the first very thing that we did with it, ended up we had over 50% women speakers in tech because people, A, said there was no community in Scotland, and B, you won't get women speakers. So we proved them wrong on that one.
The next year, we thought, we don't want to hear the same, I'm going to drop an F-bomb because Donna didn't, but the same fucking boring speakers all the time. At that point, there was a need in the community for some fresh blood. So what we've done is we had a new speakers programme. There's a lot of people that spoke at that event for the first time who are now MVPs, who are now in good positions in their business and in the community. So being able to do that has been awesome.
Diverse inclusion was then the following year, and again, it's just pushing the boundaries more and more in everything we do, and it's, as everybody said, even on today with accessibility, we start something, push it out there as an idea. You guys just need to keep taking that forward as much as you can. Everybody does a small little bit, gets a little bit closer to that 100%, but we can never get to 100%. Don't ever expect to get to that, because then there's no room to continue improving. If you don't have something to circle back on to look at, you're not doing it right.
And obviously, we try not to theme the events, but what we do is we try to emphasise things that can be done at other events and can be done. So we have had an accessibility track. We have tried to be as accessible for the speakers. We have we've asked what speakers if they have any needs for accessibility. We have asked people who are attending if they have any either. So we've done all we can. As Ian says, we can't be 100% there. But if you're running an event, anything that you do, if you can move that on just that 1%, that is great. So I would like to just do a couple of things. Donna, could I have you up here, please? See, you fucked with me. Donna, could I have you?
I don't know what's happening here.
Oh, no, neither do I. I'm just lad-lubbing. Can I just get you both at the front? So we have our opening and our closing keynotes. This, again, huge event, huge sessions from them both. We just get a round of applause for everyone. Thank you very much. Oh, and finally done. We cannot do that again next year.
I'm so tired. I can't do this next year at all. Like, definitively, there's no next year.
That was like, what, 1,500 through the door in 2 days? Not a chance. I'm dead. Let's go.
Let's go up the road. I'll hold on my jacket.
The 24th of February, 2024.
So we never lied. We never lied. We're not doing it next year. We did not lie.